All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to this very special edition of Statesvegas Radio. I'm in the studio live with Mr. Brandon Crouch of the Appetite for Discussion show. We have a very special person on the phone with us this evening.
Yes.
Mr. Lemonis.
Yes, Mr. Marcus Lemonis. Some of you guys know him from the hit show, The Prophet, and most of you people here in Statesville know him because of Camping World and Gander RV and some of the controversy surrounding the flag that he's flying there at his business.
You've made quite a stir in the big town of Statesville, North Carolina, sir.
Well, it is a big town. In fact, I remember it. I don't know how long you guys have lived there, but I've been in the RV business for about, 17 years now. And about 14 years ago, we made the decision to come to North Carolina. And Statesville was the first place that I picked. Of every place that I could have gone in North Carolina, it was the first place that we opened. And at the time, it was a pretty, quiet area. There was a Waffle House on the corner. Right. There was the Harley store that was going in, and then there was just a bunch of land. Right. And the building that we're in today was actually an old truck repair center that had been abandoned. And so we've been there a long time. And it was actually partially the reason we got involved in NASCAR is because when we had the store in Statesville, and I used to come for the openings, come for the construction process, I would stay at hotels nearby, and there would be a ton of NASCAR people, and they would say to me, if you want to be successful in the RV business, you got to really understand where the customer base comes from. And oddly enough, I would credit Statesville for the reason that we sponsor the NASCAR Truck Series.
Right. And not to mention the interstate, the dual interstates.
Yeah, I-77 and 40 intersecting here.
Most of us think of that as a big draw to Statesville. Unfortunately, some people would say that we haven't taken advantage of it for some reason. But and historically, if you look, a lot of areas where there's two major interstates that cross, there's a huge city to go along with it. That's but we still love our town. We're very proud of Statesville, and we realize we have a lot of things we can improve on. What do you actually own the property that the Camping World building is on now, or is that a leased property?
So what we did is we had originally owned it, and we did a sale leaseback with a national REIT. And that's just a business decision for us not to, have our cash tied up in property.
Right.
But we have all the same rights as if we owned it. We're tenants, but we have a unique landlord in the fact that they're more of a partner of ours than they are just, a landlord from down the street.
Well, in some of the discussion and some of the argument about this whole issue that came up, were you guys officially, taxpayers to the city of Statesville? And regardless,
can I respond to that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So we pay the property taxes there. The landlord does not pay the property taxes.
Well, that's definitely good to know. So
we pay rent. We pay sales tax. We obviously employ a number of people, and we've been there for a very long time. And I will tell you that the residents have done a good job of making us feel welcome. Right. But it's been a battle with the city council for a number of years, as you guys know. This isn't like a new thing for me.
Right.
But it's frustrating for sure.
I had personally had a little front row seat to that because I actually ran for a city council seat, and one of the current city councilmen that ran on your agenda for the flag, that was one of his major talking points. And one of the first things he did when he was elected was ask for that the ordinance to go away and for the flag to come up, and as far as I know, 99% of Statesville kind of agreed. When did you first go to the city council and ask for permission to put the flag up?
Well, just to remind everybody, there's been two actual things that have happened.
Right.
There was the size of the flag pole,
right,
which was number one. And then there was the size of the flag. And, so that your listeners understand, this isn't about being obstinate or being disrespectful to anybody.
Right.
At the end of the day, I am in full belief and in full sort of endorsement of the idea of making sure that the town doesn't get littered with a bunch of nonsense. And
Right.
if we were hanging a flag up that was, for the Charlotte Bobcats, or if it was something random for our business,
Right.
I would get it, and I would actually, understand the ordinance.
Mhm.
When it comes to the American flag, there's really a couple ways that I look at it. Number one, the flagpole should only be approved when it's clear that no consumer, no pedestrian, no traffic pattern, no resident is in danger if, God forbid, the flag fell, like the pole fell.
Right.
So that you have to clear that hurdle.
Right.
Number two, we want to make sure that the flagpole doesn't undermine the FAA and any plane's ability to travel safely through the sky. And there's a couple of stores that we have around the country where we're in the line of pattern for a plane.
Mhm.
Right.
And so we clearly don't want to put any passengers or pilots at risk. And so what I always ask people is, are people safe and are planes safe? And if those two answers are yes, then I just want a written explanation of how the size of the pole or the size of the flag impacts residents or the community in a negative way. That's all I'm asking for. And nobody can provide that to me. What they want to point to is an ordinance. And we have a flag in 187 of our locations. And oddly enough, I own a barbecue restaurant in Latta, South Carolina.
Right.
And I have the exact same flagpole and the exact same flag in that town. And there's no problems there.
Well, you
So
have
I'm
the same size flag in Mooresville.
In Mooresville,
right?
which is just 10 miles
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah, right. And no. It's actually the same county. It's Iredell County, and you have no issues with the town of Mooresville on that.
So does anybody know what the issue is?
Well, yeah, so it seems to be, well, it's more of an argument, and it seems to be going in multiple directions. It seems to me that the biggest argument is that there was a city ordinance that really nobody knows why they put a flag size up in the first place, number one. Number two, the complaint is that apparently there was an agreement between the city of Statesville and Camping World to amend that ordinance to a larger flag that you guys agreed to, and then apparently, supposedly, at the unveiling of the flag in Camping World, it was the larger 40 by 80, which is not what was agreed to. Is that true?
And that's, to be candid with you,
Yeah.
and you'll find me to be very transparent, I don't know what was agreed to, and I don't know if it was somebody acting on our behalf,
Sure.
but I definitely would have never agreed to it, not under any circumstance.
Right.
Because I don't know how you arbitrarily do it. And I guess I would apologize if somebody agreed to a particular size that was acting on behalf of the company erroneously or appropriately. But at the end of the day, everybody knows that we have a flag size and a flagpole size that I put up in all of my businesses, regardless of what they are. And so I'll ask the same question over and over again. I understand the ordinance.
Yep.
I understand and respect the rule of law. I just need to understand how people are being harmed by the fact that my flag is bigger than the one that's approved by people who probably don't even know how many square feet the flagpole that they approved actually is.
And I think that brings some of the questions I've asked, because I'm someone who actually agrees with what you're saying, and the flag should fly. It's not harming anybody. My question is to you, well, several questions. How much does it cost for a flag of that size and the flagpole and the engineering that goes into it? And that's going to lead into another question.
So the flagpole is about $90,000, the pole itself. And the flags run us on an annual basis about $30,000, because you have to have multiple flags.
Mhm.
And as you would imagine, they rip pretty easy.
Sure.
And so you can see the tattered edge. It happens in a bad storm or in a high wind. And so you got to replace them. And sometimes they can be replaced and sometimes they can be repaired. But on an annual basis, it's about a $30,000 expense. And on a one-time basis, it's a $90,000 expense to put up the flagpole. I could be off by $1,000 here or there,
but that's
it's in that
very
range.
expensive. And my,
Huge.
my point to that is there's a lot of people on social media who point to say if they break the rules for you, then what's to stop someone from flying a swastika or an ISIS flag or a flag of hate? And my rebuttal to that is about $100,000. So in all of your 187 cities around the country, have you seen an increase of tennis court size swastika or hate flags being flown? Just because
I have
of
not.
someone's
I have
meeting the
not.
rules. Yeah, I didn't think
I
so.
have not. I have
It's a
not.
ridiculous
But
argument.
but I have not. But to be fair to that argument, I can understand how somebody's fear would exist in that regard. And so my response to them, particularly the city council of Statesville, is then amend the ordinance to allow a flagpole and a flag size of any kind, as long as it is safe, as long as the plane issue is resolved, and really just say it can just be the American flag. The challenge then becomes, okay, if you respect my First Amendment to fly the American flag, why aren't you respecting my rights to fly a flag for NASCAR, or to fly a flag for the state of North Carolina, or for even a flag of negativity? How could you then now start to censor what I put up there? I see that argument. I get it.
Sure.
I guess I would say, how do all these other cities across America deal with it? And is there something we can learn from in Statesville that would help us get comfortable with the fact that probably the likelihood is low?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, you've seen zero, and even with the new ordinance that the city granted you guys to fly a larger flag, we haven't seen a spike in any sort of controversial flags flying. You did mention something about the annual cost of a flag being $30,000. Reading today some of the comments on social media, some of the complaints were that this is all a publicity stunt, and it's to gain attraction to Camping World. And if that Marcus Lemonis really cared about the flag and was a patriot, then he wouldn't let it be flying in the storms, and he would not allow Camping World would not allow the flag to become tethered. And what is your response to
that?
So
let me address that. First of all, the flags have been a part of my life since I was an infant. We owned a car dealership in Miami, Florida. I am from a different country. An immigrant in this country. I became a U.S. citizen when I was, I think, 9 years old. And so I'm very proud of who I am and what the heck this country has given me, and I'm grateful, number one. Number two, if you gave me a choice of taking the flag down or taking the sign down off my building, that is the name of my company, I would take the sign off my building first. That's how serious I am about this. And lastly, when the flag is up, and you guys know that storms happen sometimes unexpectedly, I am not going to put one of my employees at risk to go out in the middle of a storm where there's lightning or winds and have them take down a flag that's bigger than the building and put their physical self in jeopardy. At the end of the day, if the flag is torn or it's ripped, I have a financial obligation and a moral obligation to repair it or to replace it when the environment becomes safe enough to do so. But to say I didn't, I'm not watching the Weather Channel 24 hours a day to understand when the microburst is going to come.
And that's you see that all the time. I mean, there's flagpoles at public schools, at federal buildings that are left out in the rain because, like you said, public safety issues. I mean, it's common sense. The flag will dry out. I don't think it's a purposeful disrespect to the flag.
And there's never a moment where we're saying don't repair or replace because of the cost. It's just not in our DNA, and it's not in my DNA. I just got through telling you, take my sign down. If the city said to me tomorrow, we'll increase the size of the flag ordinance, but you must take the sign off your building, and so nobody's going to know what the name of your company is. I'd say, look, I think that's unreasonable, but if those are my choices, I don't have any legal rights to defend the name of my building on the sign. I think it's kind of illogical, but I would say, okay, fine, I'll take the sign down.
Back to the argument of the agreement where it's supposedly said, I believe it to be speculation that you guys agreed to a smaller flag size. It makes no sense to me why you would vary from your formula and agree to a smaller flag size. So I feel that is speculation by people that have a weak argument and can't defend their opposition to the flag.
True.
I mean, let's just assume for this discussion that there was some dialogue, because I don't want to be in the business of calling anybody, a misinformer or a liar or any of those words, right? I don't think we need that. But let's just assume that there was discussion or a request to do it. And let's say that there was some loose discussion by some person that said, we'll take a look at that. At the end of the day, I have to respect everybody's humanity, and I don't want to be insulting people. But let me make it super clear. The flag's not coming down. And I did get a call from a lawyer earlier today that said, I need you to understand what you're saying. If the court allows the motion for injunction to happen, right? Because the city filed for an injunction.
Right.
If the court approves that motion, you'll have to take the flag down. I said, I'm not going to. And they said, you'll be in contempt of court. And I said, okay, what happens then? And they said, well, you could go to jail. Wow. I said, okay, so you're telling me that if I don't take the flag down, I'm going to go to jail? I was like, okay.
Well, that'll draw national attention for sure, that Marcus Lemonis is put in the Iredell County Jail because of his flag size.
Yeah.
Well, good news is I've never been to a jail. I've never been in a jail, but I mean, maybe I'll meet some cool people.
But you have to dig your heels in too on a certain common sense. I mean, I just finished a podcast a little bit ago, and one of the things I said is it seems like common sense doesn't seem to be that common anymore. And I could, like you said before, if this was a huge, Gander RV flag, that's different. But it's not. It's the American flag. And this is a time in our country, that's the whole premise of my show, is having people of different opinions and different ideas coming to the table and talking to one another and being respectful and listen and be open-minded. We may not agree on everything, but at least we can maybe find some common ground and learn from one another.
Well, and it's Memorial Weekend.
And it's Memorial Day weekend.
And who, and many voices have said the same thing. Who files a lawsuit to take a flag down on the week of Memorial Weekend? I mean, it's almost ludicrous. And, I will fill you in on one thing, Mark. Sorry, Mr. Lemonis.
No, Marcus.
Marcus,
Yeah.
thank you for that. The vote, when the councilman that I was referring to earlier called for a vote to change the ordinance, there was a split council. It was the 4 new council members against the 4 old ones. Now, I don't think the 4 old ones particularly had even a clue that there was a ordinance. I'm sure they might have known about it, but it wasn't on their radar. I personally feel like it was more of a battle between the 2 sanctions of our local council, because after they said no, refused it later on, which I believe public outcry.
Yep.
I think they were receiving a lot of
my favorite part of California.
Their constituents saying, "Hey, why did you do this?" That's when they went back to the drawing board and decided that they were going to try to work something out. And instead of just saying, "Okay, we were wrong," and trying to save face, they decided that just compromise would be the way to go. Now, there's speculation that somehow you guys agreed to it, which I would love to see. I mean, some of you speculated that it was in writing that you guys agreed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was posted on Facebook today.
That you actually put it in writing. I don't find that to be factual, but I could be wrong.
So, Marcus, let me ask you this: Did Camping World and did you personally know that there was a flag ordinance in town before you guys decided to have a store here?
Before we decided to have a store there 14 years ago?
The ordinance wasn't in effect 14 years ago.
Right. So that's kind of goes back to my point too. So when they had they're bringing a store here, and then all of a sudden this flag ordinance starts. When did you guys first start flying the big American flag?
We had it in certain markets, but to be candid with you, I couldn't afford at the time to put them everywhere. I mean, sure. We went through the 2008 and 9 downturn, and our business got really beat up by it. And like all of us, we had a tough couple years. And, as we got out of that and the RV business became more popular and we were able to be more profitable, we choose to reinvest our business in other things. And I think in the last 4 years, we invested like like some crazy number, like I don't know, $10 million or something in this concept, and it really started, as I said to you, many moons ago. But I obviously went in city by city because the people that put the flagpole up have to go in and get a permit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they have to get a permit and to be an authorized company. And they went and put it in. And I remember at the time, because this isn't the first thing, that the city actually refused the size of the pole. And I told the flag company, "I'm sorry, put the flagpole in." They said, "Well, it's going to be a problem. Will you indemnify us? Will you indemnify us from a lawsuit or from whatever fines we'll get?" I said, "I will." And part of the reason I became so animated about it is because we were putting them up all over the country, like
Right.
everywhere. And all of a sudden, it was like, no, not in this town. We had one other town that gave us a hard time. That was Georgetown, Kentucky. It was a suburb of Lexington, excuse me. And that was the only other place where we had like a huge beef about it. In other towns, believe it or not, where the town actually said no to the pole and no to the flag, we put it up anyway. And we never heard anything about it.
So
And at the end of we put it up anyway.
And let me ask you this, Marcus. What would you say to the people that I read today that you are a businessman who is just a bully, who's used to getting their way and being defiant?
Well, first of all, I am a business person. I wish I got my way all the time. I'm married, so we all know that we don't get our own way. And number two, the consumers can determine whether my business succeeds or fails, and my employees determine whether my business succeeds or fails. I don't determine that. And so if employees are upset or angry about the way that I'm handling this, then my customers will tell me and my employees will tell me that they're not in favor of it. If I had, this is to be totally honest with you guys, if I had all of my customers and all of my employees, or the lion's share of them, say to me, "We will not support your business if you do this," I would want to have a healthy debate. I'd probably have a town hall meeting and invite them to talk to me about why they did not want to do business with me. But to have, I think it's 8 elected officials who I don't even know if they've shopped at my store, ever met me before, know anything about me or my employees or my customers, unilaterally just say, "You know what? No, I'm sorry, you can't do it." I look at it differently.
All right.
My customers own my business. I don't own my business.
You were talking about, what do you see as a solution to this problem? Is there a compromise? Give me something that I can take to our council and say, listen,
There should be no size restriction
okay,
on the pole or the size of the American flag, as long as it complies with the FAA. It complies with all the safety regulations that, God forbid, in a storm it would fall in a place that would be, a problem for people. It must comply with safety regulations. It must comply with the FAA, and it must be the American flag. There's a flag in the state of Wisconsin. By the way, my flagpole is 130 feet. There's a flag in the state of Wisconsin, flagpole that's 300 feet.
wow.
And so it costs them $2 million to put it in.
Wow.
If I want to invest $2 million of my own money in putting in the largest flag in the United States or the largest flag in North Carolina, as long as it complies with safety, why would anybody think that's a bad idea? I don't get it.
It boggles my mind that anybody could have any kind of opposition to that flag. One more question about the compromise. Now, whether you signed an agreement or not, we do have an ordinance where they charge you $50 a day for breaking the code. Would you be willing to pay that fine if the code was changed in your favor?
First of all, I have to pay the fine regardless. And so we
that
will.
was another point.
We have not been given an invoice,
Okay.
or whatever the appropriate citation is. I think it would come in some sort of formal document that would look like I think we've all gotten a speeding ticket before.
Right.
We have to pay it. We obviously are obligated to pay that. If they make us pay it every day, then somebody will take a cashier's check there every day. Right. And I don't want to be sarcastic or asinine by saying, as I did, if it's $500 or $5,000, it's not the amount of money. It's I don't control the city's rights to fine me, and I must be compliant with the fine.
Right. So here we have it from your mouth, these words. You're willing to admit that you broke the rules, you will pay the fine, but you want the code changed to allow the flag. Like 99% of the city of Statesville, the state of North Carolina, the United States of America.
The overwhelming majority supports.
You know what's kind of interesting to me? I'm surprised that there's not federal legislation supporting. I'm surprised there's not federal legislation supporting the right to put up a flag and put up the American flag.
Well, I think there is a federal law that the American flag has to be on top, right? Isn't that a federal issue that you cannot fly a state flag or any other flag for that matter above
the American flag?
That is correct.
I think that's a federal thing. Yeah. So I mean, as long as it's safe, I mean, the argument is ridiculous that it could blow into the interstate or somebody's going to put up an ISIS flag.
Well, people are going to the extreme, right? And that's what they're doing. And
you know what, guys, in fairness to that argument, because I like to try to be fair, we do live in a world of extremes. Right. And we are living in a world where people would interpret it to their favor. And there are plenty of people that are angry with me, and I'm sad about it, that they're angry with me that I'm, as they described it, being so defiant. Right. But I think defiance is a relative term. If I was being defiant by saying, I'm going to drive as fast as I want, I'm going to drink at whatever age I want, I'm going to deal drugs, I'm going to hurt people, then obviously that defiance would come with consequences. Defiance to me, this has to be a relative term, and here's the way I think about it. What would my mother say if she knew my mother's not around? What would my mother say if she knew I was doing this? My mom would tell me to, hey, you got to do the right thing. I don't think my mom would be telling me to take the flag down.
No, I completely agree. Right. And, it's interesting because someone did make a comment today on Twitter and they referenced, your mom and she raised you better. And I thought that was a little over the line, a little inappropriate. They don't know your mother.
My mom actually, you know what I would say to them? My mom did raise me better, which is why I'm not budging.
Well, I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, and in my opinion,
thank you for your service.
You're welcome. And there is no such thing as too big a flag. And a 6-inch flag or a 60-foot flag means the same to me.
Right.
And if they say you're using it for marketing, more power to you. Show off your pride for.
By the way, can I address that? I want to just address that. If you looked, and there's plenty of research out there. If you went onto YouTube or you went onto our historical digital marketing or you went onto our direct mail or to our newspaper advertising, to our NASCAR advertising, I would like somebody to point out to me where I use the flag as a marketing tool. Nowhere in there in our marketing does it make the flag the center point of what we're doing.
Right.
Nowhere.
I agree. I think it's a terrible argument.
I gave that argument to someone today, and I said, for everyone who has that feeling that Marcus and Camping World or Gander RV is doing this, then don't go to a single Memorial Day sale this weekend. Right. Because then they are exploiting Memorial Day and the flag that are hanging outside to get people to come in their stores.
And I think most Americans want to do business with a company that supports their country.
Of course.
And is not afraid to show the love for their country. And
look, it's been a tough couple of years. I'm sure you guys are aware for me in terms of, people have interpreted things that I've said and things that I've meant. And I've sort of tried to stay away from it all. At the end of the day, it's very simple for me. I live in a land that gave me permission to come here. It granted me a license, all pun intended, to come here and be a resident of this country. It was not obligated to do so. I am responsible to comply, and I took it a step further. I'm responsible to do something. I employ 21,000 people across the country. Not a big deal, but it's a big responsibility. I make a lot of mistakes. I do a lot of things that I shouldn't. I say things that I shouldn't, and I'm human. And if I do, I apologize. On this one, I'm not budging.
And I don't blame you. And that is a big deal, the 21,000, because you're putting food, you're giving those people insurance, you're putting a roof over their head, so it's a big deal to them, and I know they appreciate it. But in the same vein of misinformation, is there anything that you feel like you've been misquoted or misrepresented? Because you're right, you have taken some heat here recently about some stuff. Is there anything
Yeah.
over this issue in particular that you feel like is not true that you would like to correct?
On this issue in particular,
Sure.
no, I just don't want people thinking that this is a marketing stunt, because I don't have billboards all around. Look at my flag. Look at my flag. Come see my big flag.
Right.
I'm not living in an environment where I'm talking about my flag. I'm not the one that sued me, right? Like, I got sued for my flag. I'm not the one that created all this discussion about the flag. The city created it by filing a lawsuit.
Right.
You're exactly right.
Right. You know, I was listening to, there was reading today, and they were really giving you down the road about something you said you didn't say about Trump supporters don't come in my store.
Yep, not true.
Not
Didn't
true.
say that.
Right. And, you know, that'd be like Michael Jordan said, you know, why does he take a stance? He's like, because Republicans buy sneakers too. You know, so I mean,
At the end of the day, here's the deal. At the end of the day, and by the way, people don't even know how I vote. They don't know what I'm registered as. People like to speculate.
Right.
At the end of the day, everybody puts on their pants the same way. We all have our different views. I respect everybody's opinion, as long as, I want to be super clear, as long as it's not harmful or hurtful to other people. That's where the line is clear for me. I don't want to be hurting people or making them feel bad or putting them in danger. Other than that, we could disagree on immigration, we could disagree on healthcare, we could disagree on the economy, and I think that's healthy.
Right,
It's when we
absolutely.
disagree about hurting people, and nobody in this country, including the President of the United States, is ever advocated for hurting people. And I've ever heard it or seen it. I've never heard or seen him ever say anything. He has his own opinions.
Sure.
I respect them. I don't always have to agree with them.
Right.
I didn't always agree with Obama. Doesn't matter. I'm not the president. I'm just a citizen that has to comply with who the president is.
And you're doing great things for our country and our city, and we really need to show you that appreciation by changing this code and letting that flag fly. And I hope your transparency and your willingness to come on and talk to two small town guys with a internet radio show, we appreciate it. And
Yes.
All I know, guys, is
Says a
if
lot
they
about
lock
your
me
character.
if they lock me up, you all need to bring me some food.
Don't worry, we'll take care of it if you get locked up.
You send me a menu. I'll bring you a 5-course meal.
That's all right.
All right, guys, take care.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you
so much.
coming on.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, take care.
Good night.